The Galactic Council's monthly gathering had devolved into its usual display of species superiority, with each delegation attempting to outdo the others in tales of prowess and conquest. Ambassador Zek of the Vorthak Empire leaned back in his crystalline chair, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he recounted his latest triumph. The Kelrani thought their thick hides would protect them, Zek hissed, his serpentine tongue flickering between razor-sharp teeth, but our plasma lances cut through their defenses like liquid fire through ice. 17 worlds fell in a single rotation cycle. Murmurs of impressed acknowledgement rippled through the assembled predator species. The Vorthak had earned their reputation as apex hunters across 3 sectors, their military campaigns legendary for their swift brutality. General Thrax of the Bone Crushers slammed a massive fist onto the table, causing several smaller ambassadors to flinch. His species stood nearly 3 meters tall, with exoskeletons that could deflect most energy weapons and claws capable of rending starship hulls. "Impressive, Snakeskin," Thrax growled, but the Crushers took 43 systems from the Aquarian Federation last quarter. Their cities still burn from our orbital bombardments. High Huntress Valara of the Shadow Fleet materialized from seeming thin air, her species' natural cloaking abilities making her sudden appearance all the more intimidating. "Numbers mean nothing without artistry," she said, her voice like silk over steel. "We eliminated the entire Nexus Prime leadership in a single night. No witnesses, no evidence, no hope." The predator species continued their verbal sparring, each tale more brutal than the last. They spoke of conquered worlds, enslaved populations, and extinct civilizations with the casual air of discussing weather patterns. Their prey species, the Yuant, herbivorous gentlefolk, the crystalline harmony singers, the aquatic peace swimmers, cowered in the gallery seats saying nothing. It was then that Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation cleared her throat. The sound, barely audible above the boasting, somehow commanded attention. The human sat quietly at the far end of the table, having listened to nearly an hour of conquest tales without contributing a word. She was unremarkable by galactic standards. No natural weapons, no armor plating, no enhanced senses. Just a small biped in a simple blue uniform. "Fascinating accounts," Sarah said, her tone conversational. "I have a question, though." Zek's vertical pupils narrowed. What question could prey possibly have for predators? Sarah smiled, the expression somehow failing to reach her eyes. "Where's the challenge?" Silence fell across the chamber like a heavy blanket. The predator species exchanged glances, unsure they had heard correctly. "Challenge?" Thrax rumbled. "We conquered entire star systems." "Against opponents who never stood a chance," Sarah replied calmly. "Advanced weapons against primitive defenses. Stealth technology against species without detection capabilities. Orbital bombardment against ground-based civilizations." She paused, studying her nails with apparent disinterest. "Where I come from, we'd call that hunting farm animals." Valara's form shimmered with barely contained rage. "You dare question our prowess, mammal?" Sarah looked up, meeting each predator's gaze in turn. "I'm not questioning anything. I'm simply noting that everything you've described sounds easy, unchallenging, almost boring, really." "Boring?" Zek's voice rose to a near shriek. "Well, yes," Sarah continued. "You attacked weaker species with overwhelming force. That's not hunting, that's bullying. On Earth we have a saying, anyone can beat up children. It takes skill to face an equal opponent." Thrax leaned forward menacingly. "And what would you know of hunting, little human?" Sarah's smile widened, and this time it did reach her eyes, though the expression somehow became less comforting, not more. "Humans? We're persistence hunters. We don't rely on superior weapons or numbers or stealth technology. We just keep coming. We track our prey across continents, across years if necessary. We study them, learn their patterns, understand their weaknesses. And then, when they're exhausted from running, when they've used up every trick and advantage they possess," she shrugged. "That's when we strike." The chamber had grown unnaturally quiet. Even the prey species in the gallery had stopped their nervous chittering. Our history is full of David versus Goliath stories, Sarah continued conversationally. Small forces defeating larger ones through ingenuity, determination, and sheer stubborn refusal to quit. We've been doing it for millennia. Sometimes the rabbit wins against the fox. Ambassador Keltar of the Harmony Singers, a crystalline being who rarely spoke, chimed softly. The humans defeated the Xerion hegemony. The predator species stirred uneasily. The Xerion hegemony had been a nightmare force that conquered everything in its path for 2 centuries. Their biomechanical armies were considered unstoppable, had been unstoppable until they encountered humanity. The Xerions had better technology, Sarah acknowledged. Better weapons, better armor, better ships. They won every major engagement for the first 3 years of the war. Then how? Zek began. We kept coming, Sarah said simply. Every time they won a battle, we learned something new. Every defeat taught us their weaknesses. We adapted faster than they could adjust. And most importantly, we never stopped fighting. Not when they glassed our colonies, not when they captured our fleets, not when they occupied Earth itself. She stood slowly, and somehow the small human seemed to fill more space than before. By the end, the mighty Xerion hegemony was so desperate to escape us that they fled to dark space rather than face another human patrol. The greatest predator species in known history, running away from prey that refused to stay down. The silence stretched on until Valara finally spoke. What? What do you want from us? Sarah's expression returned to its earlier pleasant neutrality. Nothing at all. I just thought you might want to know that while you've been hunting farm animals and calling yourselves apex predators. She gathered her papers and headed toward the door. Humanity has been wondering when we'd finally encounter some real competition. She paused at the threshold and looked back one final time. Call us when you're ready for an actual hunt. We'll be waiting. The door closed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the galaxy's most feared predator species to contemplate a disturbing new possibility. That somewhere in the dark between stars something was hunting them. And it had infinite patience.